recording to stop, it could stop at any time. And it's just sound, right? At this point. Alrighty. So I thought we'd do the first couple, maybe 2 or 3, because they're quick. And we can spend 2 minutes on each, or we can hang out for half an hour, whatever you want on each. Until like it's like something you feel you're like grabbing onto and getting something out of. And I thought we would do some of that here, and then I thought we would go back closer to where we were, because maybe it's sort of nice to repeat the same thing in different environments. Ideally, if we had more time, we could repeat it different times a day. You know, we'd be like, okay, we did one where it's like all the listening had to happen in the middle of the night, and it would be like we'd come to your house and wake you up, and you'd be listening in a sort of half asleep state, and that was kind of cool. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to like straight up listen. Okay. So Act 1 says from listening to tracking. All right. So the idea is that there are 2 different ways we're going to listen, and hopefully that we have different kinds of attention that sort of draws out from us. So first we're going to spend a few minutes, 2 or 3. I'll just sort of call it. So the first is just listen to everything you hear around you. So we'll take a few minutes. You want to get comfortable? You want to sit? You want to stand? Is this okay for a couple minutes? Leaning, sitting? Okay. So maybe 2 minutes. I can call it when it's been 2 minutes. Let's say 3, because it's good to slow ourselves down a little bit. And just try to listen to everything around you. Now we're going to continue listening, but we'll shift a little bit our attention. Instead of listening to everything, pick particular sounds and track them as they move through space. So it's a different kind of attention and a different kind of target to our listening. feel that even just with this sort of brief beginning, these were two different kinds of attention that were being elicited? Were you able to sort of switch and actually listen in different ways?
Yes.
Yeah? What were some of the differences for you?
Well, like a focus generally, like instead of just being sort of receiving, you know, like a lot of dispersed sounds around me, trying to focus on something kind of felt like it had some direction or even a choice.
Did anyone else sort of sense a difference between the two?
Yeah, with the second example, I was focusing more on the more dominant sounds, and in the first version, I was more focusing on the less dominant sounds to see what else, to hear what else is there.
So you made a selection as well, right? You said there was some kind of selection. You said there was selection. Anyone else? We can repeat that. I mean, it's sometimes it different. Like the bike helped me. You know, when the bike came, it's like, okay, I can screen everything else out and isolate and track it. Did anyone else have that experience? You want to repeat it and try it again? Are we good with this? What do you think?
Feeling was different. With the first exercise, it felt more like trying to encompass everything. But with the other one, more like a hunter or something.
Okay. Interesting. Or more like a hunter. Were they both equally external? Do you feel like one was more? Were you listening inward at all, or was it kind of outward?
I think outward.
Outward. But there are two different forms of outwardness, right? One is, and I don't want to I'm interested in if you had these different things, how you would describe them. You know, I could just talk about
for
my
the
thing.
first one, I had to concentrate less. Like I could leave my eyes open and just concentrate on what's going on. But then for the second one, I had to close my eyes to focus more on picking up a particular sound and tracking that one sound.
I did notice that people were like kind of the visual thing was starting to be blocked off. I peeked around.
No, I would oppose to that.
Yeah.
You know,
you had a different.
Pretty much the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But were you?
If I focus on one sound, it's quite easy to track, even if it's a distant one. But if I am to listen to every single thing that I can possibly hear, there's pretty much no other computing power left.
What do you do to actually track that sound? What happens? What do you have to do?
I try to imagine it on a plane, like an image.
Okay. So for you, it's an image. Okay. Now imagine we sitting here with our eyes closed when that dude came out. Who knew that we were going to be doing something so extreme? So, hi. Yeah. We're doing a listening workshop. You want to join us? We're hanging out listening to the space. You can join us. You can join us if you want. Okay. Cheers. Cheers. I always think it's interesting when groups of people do something unusual like this, you know, like how that is actually a sign. Okay. So one of the reasons I think, I mean, it's like a banal thing to do, to say, well, you know, how do you listen when you're kind of just generally listening, or how do you listen when you try to track something? It's sort of a banal thing, but at the same time, in sort of surveillance technologies, one of the primary principles has to do with sort of understanding what tracking is as a form of human attention. So much of like preemptive warfare is really based on the idea of sort of tracking information, which means being able to sort of select something and screen everything else out. And the process of screening out is something I'm really interested in. How do we screen stuff out? Not just how do we select something and like focus on it, but there's a complementary, it's a dialectic, right? I like dialectics. I'm always trying to learn more about what it actually is. There's these simultaneous processes. They seem opposite, but they make each other. They constitute each other. in order to reach out and grab something and focus on it, I have to also simultaneously screen everything else out. So it's like this simple perceptual thing, but in terms of attention, it's actually very complex. And in terms of how that translates into a kind of politics of warfare, you can sort of follow that at a number of different levels. So maybe we do, maybe we don't pursue it. But I just wanted to mark that as a definite shift in outward focused attention. And now I want to kind of complicate that and say, what if our attention and what if our listening wasn't just external? What if we had also a kind of interiority to it? So we're going to huddle as close together as we can in terms of our comfort level, and do the same thing. But this time we'll be in each other's physical, sensorial space. Okay? So who wants to huddle? Who would like to? Who would? Maybe when we stand, we can get close. So we'll try to do the same thing. Spend like 2 minutes or so listening around at everything we hear, and then I'm going to kind of call it, and we'll try to find something and track it. And when your attention wanes and stuff, just let it go and come back to it. Okay, it's not like military style or anything. You wanna?
Are we to do the first?
We'll do the first one, and then I'll call it and say let's switch and try to do the tracking. Okay, so first we're just listening again, listening to everything around us. Okay, now let's see if we can find something to track as it moves through space. Good for now? So, how was that the same, or we just did basically the same instructions but with in a different situation? Anything new in the second round that you didn't notice or you weren't